taking notes for research in elementary school. We are doing some research on dinosaurs. We want to know what type of dinosaurs lived in Canada and what they were like. To do this, we should use a few different sources, like books, websites, or experts to find the information we need to answer our questions. How can we take the information we found and use it? For example, let's look at this online document. It is from the Red Path Museum. If we scan it quickly, we can get an idea of its message or information. Start by looking at any titles, subtitles, and images. These are clues to help us decide if it can be used to answer our questions. In this case, we can see that there is an image of a dinosaur and some details about it. There's also a map of Canada, so this dinosaur might have lived there. We can already tell that there is a lot of interesting information to help us answer our research questions. Then, if we decide to use this source, we will have to carefully read it and take notes. Taking notes is about finding and writing down important pieces of information. It helps us to better understand the information we find, organize it, and remember it. Our notes will also help us answer our research questions. For example, the first paragraph already gives us information that may be useful for our research. The first sentence is, Sara is a Triceratops that lived in East End, southern Saskatchewan, just over 65 million years ago at the end of the Cretaceous era, the golden age of dinosaurs. Now let's look at each part of that sentence. First, Sara is a Triceratops that lived in East End, southern Saskatchewan. In this part, we learn that Sara is a Triceratops and we know that that is a kind of dinosaur. So we should highlight that or note it down. It also says that she lived in a place called East End in southern Saskatchewan. East End is probably not as important as the name of the province it is in, so we will not write that part down in our notes. But we will write, they lived in Saskatchewan. Now, let's take a look at the next part of that sentence. It tells us that she lived just over 65 million years ago at the end of the Cretaceous era, so we will add this information to our notes. They lived 65 million years ago in the Cretaceous era. The last part of that sentence, the golden age of dinosaurs, is a description of the Cretaceous era. A description of the Cretaceous era is not important to us here, so we will not take note of that. The last sentence says, her extended family lived in a large part of North America, including Alberta, Saskatchewan, Colorado, Montana, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Now we know that Triceratops lived not only in Saskatchewan, but in those other places too. But remember that we wanted to know about dinosaurs in Canada, so we'll only need to include the places that are within Canada. So let's add Alberta to the places they lived, but not the other places. The second paragraph gives us lots of information. Only some of it is useful to answer our research questions. It talks about Sara, it says that she was a teenager and how old she could have lived for, which are not very useful to answer our questions. The only part that really helps is the one that talks about how big Sara would have become. Usually animals of the same type are about the same size when they are fully grown, so we can assume that it is the same with the Triceratops. Here it says, she would have grown to 9 meters long, 3 meters high, and she would have weighed 6 to 12 tons. Let's write that down. The third paragraph talks about how the Triceratops walked and what they ate. Triceratops were quadrupeds. They walked on 4 legs, and herbivores, plant eaters. It then goes into more details about their teeth and jaws, but that is probably more information than we need. If later we find that we need that extra information, we can come back to the document. So for now, in our notes, let's write down Triceratops walked on 4 legs, they ate plants. We've only looked at the first 3 paragraphs. If we were actually doing this research, we would continue looking at all of the other paragraphs and the other parts such as the table and images. For now, we will stop here and pretend that the first 3 paragraphs was all the content. Since the paragraphs we looked at offered valuable information to answer our questions, we've made notes that we will be able to use to answer our research questions. When doing research, you should always have many sources of information. This will help you to find the best information to answer your questions. Also, remember to keep track of sources. To learn more about how to use information, please watch Quote, Paraphrase, Summarize, What's the Difference? For elementary students.